Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. The show is being taped in November. We'll be reporting on the October recordings at the Registry of Deeds, talking a little bit about our county and our colony history. So let's get right to the numbers. First of all, our headline for the month is Mortgage Numbers Increase, Average Sale Prices Decrease, and Sales Overall are pretty flat. There were 691 deeds recorded in October, higher than the 684 deeds recorded in September, down 4% from last year's October numbers, which were 689, 1% higher recording of deeds year to date, 2% less than last month. And kind of interesting, although our average sale price was pretty high, $695, $735, over the last couple of months, we've seen almost a $50,000 decrease in the average sale price. Now, that's not a trend, but something that people have been talking about happening for a while, that maybe the prices will come down. Certainly for the last couple of months, the average sale prices came down, but we'll keep an eye on that for next month. Mortgages have increasingly gone up. There were 1,522 mortgages recorded in October, more than the 1,375 in September, 14% higher year to date, and as compared to the 1,341 last October. So we're up 12% year to date. We always follow foreclosure issues, particularly since the meltdown of 2008. We're not seeing a lot of that right now. During the foreclosure, during the COVID moratorium, there was a foreclosure. During COVID, there was a foreclosure moratorium, and the lenders really have not caught up much with that. There were only 4 foreclosure deeds throughout Plymouth County in October, less than the 9 for September, but clearly 62% less than last October, and year-to-date they're down significantly, 28%. I always say this, foreclosure deed is when you've lost your property to the lender usually. A foreclosure notice shows you're having difficulty paying your mortgage, it shows you're behind. If you're having any difficulty paying your mortgage, don't wait. Reach out to a federal housing council like NeighborWorks as soon as possible, because the earlier you get to your problem, they may be able to do some kind of a modification for you. So with that said, there were 36 foreclosure notices throughout Plymouth County in October, higher than the 33 foreclosure notices in September, 16% less than last October, and 23% down year to date. You're also going to see an image that tells the story pretty well, a listing of foreclosures and orders of notice for all 27 communities of Plymouth County, from Abington to Whitman. And as you can see, there really isn't a lot of activity. Plymouth had 6 orders of notice. Brockton had 8, and Brockton had 2 foreclosure deeds. But again, if you're facing difficulty, don't be shy. Reach out to a federal housing counselor. So I always want to highlight, there's a lot of people that are concerned about fraud currently, and there is fraud out there in the marketplace, just not so much in our area relative to our recordings. Normally, we've had a couple of fraud issues, and unfortunately it's been family member to family member. But be alert, pay attention to what's going on around you, and don't fall for any traps. People will always try to take advantage of your assets, and your home is primarily the main asset for most people. However, we have a free fraud alert on our website. If you go to our website, PlymouthDeeds.org, go to resources, and then go to fraud alert, you can sign up with your email, and anything recorded against your name, you'll get an email to you. Clearly, if your name is Smith, there may be a lot of emails, but it's something that gives you a heads up. If it's something that should have been recorded, like a discharge, then you know that something would have been recorded in your chain of title. But if it's not that, it gives you the opportunity to go to our website, go down and talk to our people at one of our three offices, Plymouth, Brockton, or Rockland, and check it out and get ahead of it. And as I said, there are scams out there. There are companies that will send out notices offering you to get a copy of your deed for $35 up to $60. If you go to one of our offices, again, Plymouth, Brockton, Rockland, you can get a copy of your deed for $1 a page. I advise you to have a copy of your deed along with all your other things that you should have, like power of attorneys, your will, all of those kinds of things. So I advise you to get a copy of your deed, and I also advise you to take advantage of this free fraud alert. I had a great guest last month, the grandson of one of our registers of deeds back in the 1900s. This particular month I do not, so we're going to get right into our notable land records. The holidays for November, to highlight, daylight saving times ended on the 1st. Election day for cities was the 4th of November. Veterans Day was the 11th, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving on the 27th. My first notable record relates to elections. A fellow by the name of James Michael Curley, a well-known Irish politician, was mayor of Boston in 4 separate decades. Very colorful personality. But he bought a summer home in Hull in 1914. Had it in his wife's name, as a lot of people did in those days. But Curley was quite a fascinating person who had an election base and kept getting elected. He served as a member of the Common Council in Boston, was a state representative, an alderman for the city of Boston, a city councilor, a United States congressman twice, and he served as mayor of Boston 4 times and once as Massachusetts governor. He was elected mayor of Boston in 4 different decades, which is kind of interesting. There's a statue of James Michael Curley over near Government Center, between Government Center and Faneuil Hall. And it's a well-done replica of him. And there's a spot on the bench next to him if you chose to sit down and remember the stories of James Michael Curley. As far as a Veterans Day goes, we have a very famous veteran who grew up in the town of Plimpton. Her name was Deborah Sampson. She was a soldier in the American Revolution. She's also known as the official heroine of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She was born in Plimpton in 1760, the oldest of 6 children. Her great-grandfather, Isaac Sampson, sailed to Plymouth in 1629 and was one of Plimpton's first settlers. Deborah Sampson, in 1782, at the age of 21, enlisted in the Massachusetts Regiment under the name of the 4th Massachusetts Regiment, under the name of Robert Shirtliff. Women could not serve at that time, but she was very much involved in a lot of the battles of the American Revolution. There's a great series that is starting now by Ken Burns about the American Revolution that promises to be a really good story, and I advise you to watch it. I watched part of the first show last night, but she served for 16 months, fought in battles at West Point in Tarrytown, New York, and she was wounded 3 times. She was honorably discharged from the Army by General George Washington on October 25th, 1783. She married Benjamin Gannett of Sharon, moved to Sharon, and had 3 children. She died in April of 1827 at the age of 66. But her likeness adorns the town flag for the town of Plimpton. There is also a monument on Plimpton Town Green. You can pull off the road and go over and see it, and tells the story of Deborah Sampson. And again, she is designated the official heroine of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So our next notable record, also relating to an upcoming holiday, is a property owned by John Alden. John Alden lived in Plymouth before he moved to Duxbury. In 1620, at the age of 20, he was on the Mayflower as a cooper, the person responsible for the barrels. And he came from England, chose to stay in the colony and not return in England, and he was an assistant to the governor of the colony and frequently served as acting governor. In 1627, the 2nd Division of Common Lands, he moved to property in Duxbury, it was named at the time, Duxbury. It was granted 100 acres of land. The grant is recorded in Volume 1 of the court records, and the land was westerly by Bow Street, east and south by the Bluefish River. The property today is the Duxbury Art Complex, the public library, and 2 schools. His deed is fascinating because one of the references on the property is from the burnt walnut stump. And we have a lot of those boundary markers of in those days, and they didn't use the rocks or the markers. They used trees or larger rocks, and trees don't last forever. But there is a Alden house that was built in Duxbury, and his family lived there for many, many years. So there's a 2.5 acre parcel on Alden Street that was acquired by the Aldrin Kindred of America, and they maintained the house as a public museum. If you haven't been there, it's a good place to go, particularly around Plymouth. The Aldrin Kindred Society, from the Mayflower forward, amount to thousands and thousands of people across America. So ever since the Plymouth 400, we've been including in our story one of the Plymouth colony records. In this particular colony record, it is of a rock over in Kingston, in the Rocky Nook area of Kingston. And it's interesting that it was included in the Book of Deeds, but it's actually a plan. And the plan actually identifies, again, like I mentioned in the Alden record, boundary markers that are unique. So part of the boundary description is from a cleft rock by the waterside along the common highway to the Smelt River, southward to a remarkable rock a little above the Smelt River, to the north side of the highway. That description was for land from John Cook, and it laid out the boundary of land received by him, signed off on by famous Plymouth colony names, John Howland, Joshua Pratt, and Samuel Sturdivant. But it's interesting because back in the days of the colony, they used resources as boundary markers, and it's very interesting to see that. I want to thank the folks here at the local scene for letting me do this show, talking about what for most people is their most valuable asset. I want to thank Lorna Green and Liz White for helping me put this show together. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.